What's good, podcast world? What's good, YouTube?
Sixers are in trouble. I need a top five.
Man, let's get into best of the week, man. What's good, podcast world? What's good, YouTube? Back for another episode of Charge to the Game Sports Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rome. I'm here with the fellas, Big Z and Jay. And as you can see, I'm here with a very special guest. Legendary Eagles cornerback Bobby Taylor's in the building. He's going to come on, chat with us. We're going to talk and highlight his career, some epic battles. If anybody already knows, I'm a Bucks fan. Each and every year, I was telling Bobby before the show started, sitting on my couch Sundays, Saturdays, whenever it was, ready for the Bucks to, hopefully win the game and then coming out and get smacked in the mouth. But thanks for tuning in. But Bobby, man, how you feeling, man? And welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. I mean, I'm good. How you guys feeling today?
Doing well.
Not too bad.
Yeah,
cool.
Not too bad, man.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Like I said, thanks for coming on the show, man. So we usually start, man. Obviously all our guests. Tell us a little bit about, your early life, man, where you grew up. Did you play any other sports besides football? Because, a lot of people, they don't really know, the full story. They know Bobby Taylor, either from Notre Dame or from, Philadelphia Eagles legendary cornerback. But tell us a little bit of your early life, man, how you got it started.
Yeah, so my journey started, I'm from Texas originally. I was born in Houston, Texas, but I grew up most of my life out in East Texas in Longview, Texas. That's where I ended up going to grade school, graduated high school. I played, all sports, was a good student as well. I mean, my parents were educators, so, they made sure that it wasn't just about sports. And academics definitely came first, so, I just took pride in, not only doing good on the field, but doing good in the classroom as well, just because, it's such a blessing and something that you really don't even think about, really, when you think about the chances of possibly making it to play a professional sport. I mean, even all the way through being recruited, I played basketball, ran track as well. We actually won state in basketball, like player of the year in the state. So I had kind of like a decision to make between okay, do I want to play but go sign a basketball scholarship, football scholarship? So actually, the reason why I chose Notre Dame was obviously Coach Holtz, all of the great players that were there. I had a great visit, but I was also allowed to be able to play basketball. Unfortunately, I didn't, just because after my freshman year, I had a couple of nicks and bruises. And it was just a long season, physically, coming off from playing high school and then just going right into training camp and then playing a long college football season. We were able to go to a bowl game, actually came back to Texas and played in the Cotton Bowl and beat up on Texas A&M my freshman year. So, that was cool to be able to come back, play against a lot of guys, my peers, guys that I competed against in high school, and to beat up on them, like I said. that was always a good thing. But going back to high school and growing up in Longview, I mean, it was just such a nurturing environment from my village that helped raise me, the church that I was a part of, the coaches, and just being in the smaller town, it was just real cool. And so every time we would go to, let's say, Dallas and a lot of these bigger cities, they would always call us country and stuff like that. But, maybe we were to a certain degree, but it was a certain toughness that came with where we were from, how we were raised. And it was, I still carry it with me today, just all of those experiences growing up there, taking it off, to Notre Dame, which that was a shocking, I think, eye-opening experience in itself. I mean, my visit was cool, but when you actually got there, got on campus, Coach Holtz was one of those coaches where he was very like educational when it came to teaching guys about the previous regime that came before us. I mean, it would be times where in the beginning of the week, he would be like, look, this is what this rivalry was about. This is the record between us. These are some of the legendary players that have played in this game when we would, play against teams like Florida State, play against teams like USC. And so it just made you take it a little more serious as far as, knowing about the history and things in that nature. And so, yeah, that experience at Notre Dame was incredible because, during that time, we were probably one of the only college programs that had our own television deal, as opposed to now when you think about, I mean,
so you guys kind of set the standard.
Yeah. They've been in business with NBC for years, and so that was one of the things that made me feel comfortable by going there because Notre Dame was pretty far from where I was from, and
so it's
my
a culture shock too.
Yeah, it was cold as hell. I had like a little level. I thought that was like keep me warm. I got introduced to like the triple fat goose coats and all of that type of stuff. You know what I mean? And so to be able to be on TV, knowing that okay, my folks didn't really have a lot of disposable income where they can just come to every game. At least they could see me play, and they couldn't be there in person. And so, I was happy about my decision being able to go to Notre Dame. A lot of the Texas schools at the time were down. And so, I just felt that it was, I would get the best of both worlds academically and athletically.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Because I was just gonna ask you, but like all them schools out in Texas, like Texas Longhorns, Texas A&M,
Texas school.
You know what I mean. But like I said, a lot of those schools was down at the time, and like you said, it's a lot more, other things that go into it.
Absolutely. Because I do a lot of consulting now as far as helping kids and their parents like decide where they want to go to school.
Wow.
And a lot of the questions that I ask right off is, have you guys like been out of state? Have you traveled? I mean, how comfortable are you being away from home? Do you know how to do your own laundry? Like this.
Right.
He asking real questions, man.
It's like simple stuff like that. You know what I mean? Where folks don't really think about it because when you look at the way that these college programs and the money that they throwing in recruiting, I mean, it's like it's hard for a lot of these kids to make a decision. And another thing that I suggest, I say, hey, when you go visit these schools, try to go when there's not a game going on. Like when it's not a game, because that's only 2-3 hours of the weekend or the week. Right. And the remainder of the time, a lot of times it could be crickets, depending on where a lot of these schools are located. And so when these kids go to these schools and they're visiting and, it's an official visit and they're rolling out the red carpet and taking you to all of these restaurants, there's different fans on campus. Like, that's not college life. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, that's just something that happens a couple of times. Well, basically 6 to 8 times a year, because that's when they play.
Real.
That's when they play home football games. And so, like, these kids and their parents, like, they need to think about all of those type of things, because once you commit and then once they get you on campus, I mean, the courting is over. I mean, I'm pretty sure you can, y'all probably either married or dating. Y'all know how it is doing courting. There's exchanges that naturally take place. And so I just think that's important to try to pass that message back to a lot of these kids, because you see how the transfer portal, these guys are are jumping from school to school to school, and it's just so much impatience when it comes to players. I think fans are impatient. Everybody wants to win now. Boosters are impatient because they're thinking like, look, we're donating all of this money,
right?
So we need a championship now. There's going to be one champion at the end of the year.
Exactly. So you had something, man?
What was any other schools you were considering at that time? Because I mean, you were track star, basketball star, football star coming out of high school.
So coming out, right? So my process was after my junior season in the summer, I was going to make a decision on if I was signing a basketball scholarship or a football scholarship. So
what position did you play? I'm sorry.
Kind of like off guard. Yeah, like off guard. Yeah, we had a pretty long team. I think the tallest guy on our team was probably like 6'6", 6'7", so we had some long, real athletic guys. A majority of the guys, on our team were like seniors. And so we were anticipating having a good season from a basketball perspective. And fortunately, everything came together and we were able to, bring the championship back to Longview. But so I made the decision like, okay, I'm going to sign so I sat down with my varsity basketball coach and football coach and made the decision like, look, I'm going to sign a football scholarship. So basketball coach, my coach, his name was Coach Romans. I'm like, hey, all of these guys that want to recruit me from a basketball standpoint, can you just tell them like I'm not signing a basketball scholarship just so I can be focused on, school and being a senior for real, because we're recruiting and everything that's out there, all of the different publications and folks pulling at a lot of these kids. A lot of times they don't get the joy, get time to just enjoy their senior year. And that's something that I was, hell bent and focused on being able to do that, not just from a athletic standpoint, but just, all of the social stuff that goes on when you're a senior. And so University of Texas was really like my favorite school. They had a safety because I played safety first when I was in high school. They had a safety guy named Stanley Richards. He was like one of the top safety. He ended up getting drafted in the first round playing with the San Diego Chargers like back in the day. And they had a couple other guys that were from East Texas, some of the our rival schools that went to Texas, and I had a good relationship with them. And so Texas was like number one, and they were going to allow me to play basketball as well. And mid-season, the head coach got fired.
Changed a lot of things.
They brought in a new coach. I said, I was like, well, since y'all fired the coach, I'm probably not even going to come down there and visit. I was just, and that was another thing too, like with the way I was brought up, I was living with my grandparents when I was living in East Texas in Longview. And so, they just taught me to like talk to these guys, like don't hide, don't run from them, just be straight up. If they're calling too much, just tell them, hey, it's a bad time, you can't talk. And plus, we didn't have cell phones and all of that type of stuff now where they can get in contact with these kids, sending text messages and things of that nature. And so so Texas was pretty much out of it. But I said, out of respect, I would meet with the guy that they signed as their new head coach. He came to Longview, and it was just one of those situations where, he was new. He didn't really know much. I probably knew more about Austin, where UT is located than he did, just because, we would go to Texas and run in track meets. That's where we played our state championship basketball. The basketball game was there at UT. So, I frequented Austin like quite a bit. And Austin is a real cool city outside of the university as well. And then one of my favorite high school players that I love to watch, this guy named Jesse Armstead. He went to Dallas Carter, and Dallas Carter was like a very popular high school. One year, I think they signed like 20 D1 guys like in 1 year. Like they had so much talent. So I was a big Jesse Armstead fan, and Jesse, he went to University of Miami, and so I visited Miami. It was like that was probably between. So I visited University of Miami. I visited USC, and then I visited Texas A&M here, and then I visited Notre Dame. Like the USC and the Miami visits, I mean, it was just like it was stupid. So Miami was like, my host was Ryan McNeil. He was a cornerback.
Cool. Yeah.
Real cool guy. You know, they took us like to dinner, like on a yacht, and you know,
real bougie.
Met up with Luke, and so it was just
already know.
It was one of them things where it was just so crazy. I was like, man, I'm not gonna come in. Like,
you can't focus
like,
there.
I wouldn't have been able to fit in. I mean, I knew I could play there, but that's all of the stuff outside of football. I was just like, nah, that's not for me. So fast forward to the USC trip. Went out to USC, and a good friend of mine, we're still cool now. Every time I seen Willie McGinnis, he was like my host when I went to USC. And so he took me to a house party. And, you know, it's LA, and I think like Boys in the Hood out during time. And it's people down the street like shooting guns.
Oh God!
They had this thing back in the day called it was like MTV Rock and Jock something where they did like this celebrity like softball games. So it was cats like David Justice, BBD was there. I mean, it was just and that was another situation where it was like, this is just too Hollywood. Like,
not too Hollywood.
I just want to play football.
All the fun in the world while I'm here this weekend. When I get back on this plane going back to Texas, it's like, I'll see y'all. I'm not going to, you know what I'm saying? And so went to Notre Dame. You know, it was a nice visit. You know, it was around guys like Rocket Ishmael. I mean, who else was there? Jerome Bettis, Rick Meyer, quarterback. You know, it snowed. That was like the first time I really saw like real snow.
Living in Texas.
And it was like, you know, Coach Holtz invited us over to his crib. You know, we eating, and you know, he called you back to his office and like, you know, Bobby, you going? Well, how's your trip? You think you could possibly come here? I was like, Coach, I like really, and it was actually one of my last visits. And I was like kind of hesitant because, you know, I saw all of the other stuff before I, you know, went to Notre Dame. Right. And I was like, Coach, I really like it here. I think I could possibly see myself being here on campus. And I went back home, talked it over with my parents, and you know, the rest is history.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds like a heck of a run.
I mean, that was I'm just happy. I mean, I didn't do anything foolish while I was on my recruiting trip, but I'm just happy that social media and like all of that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yes, sir.
You know,
you can't get away with nothing now.
A lot of these folks, man, they just reveal like too much. You know what I'm saying? Like some of the family business need to stay inside the family. But yeah, that was a nice little vacation for me. I'll say that when I was doing my senior year for sure.
That's what's up, man. So you ultimately choose Notre Dame. So tell us about that. So tell us about, I guess, you being a freshman. Like what were your expectations? Were you expected to play? And then I guess what was your role? Your first few years there?
Yeah, so I think their model was a lot of freshmen. They didn't look forward to them playing, right? But man, I went in there like, man, I'm gonna play.
Right.
Yeah, like some way, somehow I'm gonna get on the field. And it was just one of those situations where I had a good camp while I was there, and I was able to show some versatility because my early years in high school, I played corner when my first year on varsity. And then my junior and senior year, they moved me to safety, which really, like for my body type, was probably like my most natural position. And that's what I went to Notre Dame for, to play safety. And it was a guy that ended up getting hurt probably like the first or second game of the year. I was able to get in there, and I mean, I fortunately started the rest of the season, and you know, it was just one of those things where the opportunity presented itself. I was ready mentally. I learned the system that was important, and they threw me out there, and it's crazy because I had like a great freshman year. Like I said, we went to a bowl game. I think we ended up that year like number 2 in the country. I think we had just lost like one game, and we go into the spring, and so how they come out with the spring publications about this guy's gonna be hyped, this guy, that guy, and I was getting some good articles written about me, and so we in spring ball. I'm starting at safety, and this was probably like 2 weeks into spring ball. And we had a scrimmage like on a Saturday. I can remember like it was yesterday. And Coach Holtz was like, "Hey, Bobby, I want you to play corner during this scrimmage." And I'm looking at Coach like,
right. That's what I brought him to do.
Yeah. Like what you mean like play corner? He was like, "Look, I just need you to play corner." He didn't really like do a lot of explaining. He was like, "Look, I just need you to play corner." So I'm like, "Okay, cool, all right." Out there, I ball, like had a couple of interceptions. One thing like that's the last time I ever played safety. Like I never played safety again in my career. So
wow,
like that testimony from an athletic perspective, I just tell players like, listen, man, sometimes the position you have for yourself may not be the position that you should be playing for whatever reason, right? Because a lot of times, especially like kids now with the entitlement that they have, their parents, telling you that, look, man, this is the next Barry Sanders and blah blah. I get especially being here in like football country, Texas.
Yeah,
I hear that like all the time, and like
I can imagine.
A lot of times it's offensive, right? Because sometimes like, okay, this is a 5-6-year-old kid, and you saying, okay, he gonna be a pro. I'm like,
that's really early, right? Yeah, that's pressure.
Yeah, it's probably just a parent trying to live through the kid. You know what I'm saying? So I just tell guys all the time, I'm like, look, don't get caught up on a position. Just try to get on the field, right? And once you get on the field, like it's gonna work itself out. You know what I mean? And learn multiple positions. Don't just learn your position, because during the game it may be something to where a coach needs to flip something and say, "Hey, you go here, you go to inside. I want you to go to the left side." And if a guy's sitting here saying, "Nah, I'm just a right corner. I don't play left corner," like, what you mean? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. So I just think that overall, like having that open mind. And for me, it's like, listen, I want to get on the field, even though going into that scrimmage, like I felt some type of way when Coach Ho said that. I'm like, oh man, like, like no. And it was a blessing in disguise because my sophomore year, I was up for the Jim Thorpe Award. It was like the best defensive back in the country. My sophomore and junior year, so. It worked out, fortunately, but my attitude toward it, I think it just put me in a better place to be successful.
Right. Okay.
We had a question from the Charger to the Game group. Coleman Joyce asked, what was Coach Holtz like? What was it like to play for him? And what did you learn from your experience with Coach Holtz?
Man, so Coach Holtz was just like, as a young player, was very tough on guys. I mean, tough. I mean, he stressed fundamentals, not making mistakes, not beating ourselves. And so as a young guy coming into all of that, because, most of the guys that are at Notre Dame, they're, highly recruited guys and probably coming from situations where they're all the man. And you're being asked to maybe just play special teams right now, maybe just play scout team right now. And so, like, that's a culture shock for a lot of guys or what have you. And so he was just very tough on younger guys, but that was just his way of just trying to get you ready for the pressured situations that we played in. Like I said earlier, all of our games were on television, so a lot of eyeballs are going to be watching, and so. And he also was like a great motivator. I mean, he would have some of the most legendary speeches. It would be times in the week he would come out to us and say, "Hey," in our team meeting, like, "Look, I'm really, really, really going to build this team up that we're getting ready to play, right? And I'm going to say some things that if I didn't talk to you, maybe you would think that I didn't have confidence in you guys, but I got the utmost confidence in you, and we're gonna have a great work week, and we're gonna go kick their butt. But in the media, I'm gonna build it up like this. I'm gonna build it up like this, and I would be sitting back like the first time I would hit it, I'm like, okay,
right,
yeah. But to see that like play out, and then also see how the opposing team would just like soak that up, right? And the media soak it up.
Yeah.
We would just be sitting back like, because it would be times like media people would be saying Coach Holtz doesn't have confidence in his team, blah, 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 blah. But he had already talked to us. Look what I'm getting ready to do. You know what I'm saying? So like psychologically, he played like those games from a media perspective, but within our locker room, he always like told us the truth. He let us know where he was coming from. And I just respect him like 100% for that. I mean, we learned so much, and it wasn't just, it wasn't all about football. It was about life. It was about responsibility. It was about, performing in pressure situations, playing at Notre Dame, because you can talk about it, but once you get there and you have that gold helmet on your head, it's a totally different ball game.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So you got something, bro?
Nah, I'm just listening. I'm embracing all this. I'm just saying, especially like that, and that's something I'm glad the coach did, because there's a lot of people that come from different areas. And like you said, they're the man, and I see that so often, and it's crazy. And you hear people say that it used to didn't be like that, but it's definitely different hearing from you, someone that's been in that locker room and dealt with a coach like that. It's really refreshing. So I'm just locked in.
Absolutely, because we, especially this day and age, right? It's so many ways that, like, as a player, you could throw somebody under the bus. As a coach, you could throw somebody on the bus. But to have like the man who Coach Holtz was the man, and just pretty much like, look, just follow me. It may seem weird, right? Or what have you, because he would say, look, we all like praise. Like, we all like praise, but is that the right thing to just, because we don't always do right. We don't just play mistake-free football. That's our goal, to try to play mistake-free football. But typically that doesn't happen. But so to hear him say that and just see it all play out, and it was a situation where we always knew like he had our backs, right? You know what I mean? And so that's all. I think that's one of the X's and O's, like, that's cool, but the motivational part, right? Because, there are times in the season, man, where it's just long, especially for college programs where you only can maybe lose one game. If you lose two games, definitely three.
No chance.
Like you out of the running. And so just to have him just embrace us like that, teach us those things, and that's something that you can just carry outside of football, not just in between the lines.
So let me ask you, just one more question. So is that, as far as when you said you're helping with recruiting or helping the gentlemen with schools and stuff like that, is that where you got that? Can you do laundry? Can you do these certain things because of coach? Is that where it started, or would that something you raised with?
Well, I mean, I was raised with that because, I mean, my grandparents like made me have. I mean, even though I was, all state, all American, playing all of these different sports, getting it, being in the news. I mean, I still had chores. I had responsibilities. Yeah. Like, they held me accountable. I mean, I was active in church as well, and I not only had to pass from an academic standpoint, but there was a certain grade point that I couldn't get below. And if I got below that, I was off the field. And that was like non-negotiable. And so it didn't matter what, it didn't matter if I was getting ready to go play in the state championship. And if I didn't have a certain grade point, I was being taken off the field. And that never had to happen because, I had my priorities straight, but that started at home. And I also had coaches that understood, like, look, this is what the standard is. Like the UIL, because the UIL is like the governing body here in the state of Texas. It's probably different in the state. So, she would be like, look, the UIL got their own standards, but I'm his grandmother. My standards.
That's what I love to hear.
like for real. And it was crazy because like during the grading period, like midway through the grading period or like a third, our coaches would give us these sheets to go and, give it to our teachers to fill it out to see where we were. She would tell my coaches like, "Hey, don't get that to him because he gonna be right. So don't even worry about that. don't get that paper to him. His grade is gonna be right. I've already talked to that. I already talked to him about that. I've talked to his teachers, blah blah blah. And so, like that's what it was. And it wasn't embarrassing. It was really almost like just a challenge of competing athletically, and it was just from a academic standpoint because I knew that so even when I signed my scholarship right to go to Notre Dame, it wasn't in my mind like, man, I could make it to the league. And a lot of people that I talked to, they think that that's like BS, but I'm like, so I was just so locked in on the hustle for me was using my talents academically and athletically to get my college paid for. Like that's the hustle.
Yeah.
I talk to people now, they're like, man, we finna hustle and make it to the league. I'm like, man, make it to the league is the blessing. The hustle is because man, it's only a select few that's going to make it to the league, like period. And so that's what I was so focused on. It wasn't until after we played in the Cotton Bowl and guys like Jerome Bettis, Rick Meyer, Reggie Brooks, Irv Smith, Tommy Carter, like they getting ready to, like we getting ready to fly back. And they going, I'm like, where y'all going? Like, tomorrow we're announcing we going to the draft. I'm like, oh, for real? I'm like,
ready to get this money.
Like, yeah, that's when it like really clicked. Like when I was at the bowl game, and those like it was probably 4, 5, 6 guys because we had that year 1993. Draft, and you probably can correct me if I'm wrong. I think from Notre Dame we had 4 or 5 first round picks, and so I saw those guys like not getting on the plane. I'm like, well, so where y'all going? I was like, we get ready to sign with an agent. We going to this place to train to get ready for the combines and our personal workouts. And I'm like, And so, because during that time, it wasn't big for guys to just have like. To not go to stop going to school after they played in the bowl game and to just focus strictly on trying to get to the league. So that was all like new to me. So I was just like, I think I probably like rolled back on the plane, like, okay, like what I mean. So that's when it like really, really, really clicked. That man, like I'm close. I could get it. I could possibly get it. And I mean. However that happened organically or what have you, I'm glad it did because, it's just so many guys that I've seen that have been in high school that have just thought that they were already damn near sometime in junior high. Like, man, I'm an elite, like already. They parents talking like that. And for me, that was just that was something that just never really crossed my mind, which I feel like it was a good thing.
Yeah, I mean that's good though. Like you said, because I mean you get a lot of that now. Like you said, junior high, high school, a lot of these kids are getting scholarships and in basketball. I mean, with the AAU circuit, it's crazy. You know what I mean? Like I know somebody in the 6th grade got scholarship from everybody. You know what I mean? And like I said, we're deep. We live out here in DC, Maryland, Virginia, so they live and breathe basketball out here. But I mean, it's crazy. My next question was, I think you kind of already answered it. When did you know that I guess you were NFL ready, or you could, I guess, play at that level? But from that standpoint, I guess, was there a game or like a certain, maybe a hyped up guy that you maybe shut up or locked down or something like that? You're like, yo, I know I can play. I know I can ball.
So I think it all registered after we played Texas A&M in the bowl game that year, because I mean, I would just be competing against just guys on my team, and a lot of those guys were getting ready to get looks. But it was like, okay, I felt like I was on at that point, but I go back up to when we started spring ball and I was playing safety, and then Coach Holtz moved me to corner. That kind of like humbled me again. It kind of humbled me, which I think was a great thing, because I ended up having like I said, a great scrimmage, and then we had another week's worth of practice, and then we had our spring game, and then so school ended, and just after school was out, and then all through the summer, I was just working on just all of like my fundamental stuff. Came back home to Texas because there were just a lot of guys that were in college would always come back to Texas to compete against all, and I just like work skills, fundamentals, like pretty much like every day during the off season. And when I got back to camp, I felt like I was ready. And then I think we played Northwestern to open my sophomore season. I did well. I think I may have got like defensive player of the year, player of the game for that game, and it was just like, okay, I can do, I could do this. The following week we had to go to Michigan. Michigan had like some ballers from a receiver standpoint. We ended up beating Michigan. I got a pick in that game, and from there it just kind of like built. And then they put out probably midway through the season like a Thorpe watch list of like maybe 10 defensive backs. I was on that list. So that was probably it, like starting during the summertime, going through training camp, and then our first game my sophomore year, I felt like, okay, I mean, if I could just keep taking care of my business, but I still wasn't like, I know that's gonna happen, because I was always a realist when it came to, man, this is a physical game. We playing football, and anytime I go out, I can get hurt. Anything can happen. You seeing other guys get hurt. You hearing horror stories. So I always kept that, in the back of my mind. But starting my sophomore year, I felt like, it was definitely a possibility at that time.
Okay, all right, no doubt. So, like you said, you had the great Notre Dame career. Tell us about, I guess, how you got ready for like the draft, man. What was that like? And did you stay back in Texas, or did you fly out somewhere else to train and stuff like that?
So what I did was, I think, evaluating my college career, my sophomore year was my best year in college.
Okay.
For whatever reason, my junior year, I don't know if it was, because I had established myself. I didn't get it. It would be some games I wouldn't get a whole lot of work, but just if you putting on the film and you don't have dates associated with it, like my sophomore year was like my best year. And so I was kind of on the fence on, man, should I even come out my junior year? Should I stay? And I just, talked it over with, the fam, talked it over with Coach Holtz. And I just made the decision like, man, I'm going to just go ahead and go for it. And so what I did was I stayed at Notre Dame and trained, because we had a great strength and conditioning coach, Jerry Schmidt, at the time. So I just trained with him, stayed there. I saved some bread. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of these cats, they jump out there and, as soon as they fly somewhere, they buying maybe a couple of cars. And so I just kind of like stayed college for real. Stayed in my same crib that I was, living in at the time. Yeah. And after all of my workouts, I left and went back home. And, I had a couple of visits that, they would fly me different teams in to do like personal interviews. So, but yeah, I chose not to do all of that. I just felt more comfortable with my strength and conditioning coach. And like I said, he was great. He had time for us because I didn't have his, my classes during that time. So I could just go with him, specialize. And there was a couple other guys as well that were, I think it was a couple of seniors that stayed and trained with our strength coach as well.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for clearing that up, man. As far as I guess tell us about your draft story. So I guess when you were talking to your agent, I guess what were you looking for, or did you already know who your agent was, or how did you go about selecting an agent?
Yeah, so I didn't know. I leaned on some of the guys that came out prior to me from Notre Dame, just talked to them, and it was really just a feel thing. Like, because I probably interviewed maybe 4 or 5 guys, talked to them, a couple of black guys, couple of white guys, just talk, man, and just, I got references also from them as far as some of the players, because I wanted to talk to guys that were current and former, because I want to know, like, okay, yeah, it's cool if you're a current guy and y'all still have a relationship, but like, okay, how's the relationship with the guys that's no longer in the league? You know what I'm saying? Like, if they call you, are you still picking up the phone, or is it all about you being a paying client and I'm showing you all of this attention, and that's the only way I would do that. So I ended up, so I don't want to say the guy's name just because we don't really rock right now. But I signed with a cat, and it was a good experience. I ended up with him for probably 4 or 5 years of my career, and then what I did was I had one of my cousins. He was getting ready and had interest of trying to get into that space, the agent space. Okay. He was working with an agent. I said, well, look, you my kinfolk. Instead of paying y'all a percentage, I'm gonna pay y'all a flat fee to do my deal, because I want to be present. I want to be on the calls. I need to hear what these people talking about, because I was getting ready to sign like a free agent deal. And I ended up, kind of helping my cousin out, getting started in the business. And then I saved some money too. I didn't have to pay, that percentage on the total length of the contract. So that was cool. That was cool. So that whole experience, like going into having an agent, going into the draft, it's just, man, I never was really like comfortable, because you do everything you do on the field. Then you got to have the combines, you have your personal workout. Then there's so many rumors that's being like swirled around and thrown out there. You just don't really know what's happening.
Right.
It's like, damn, I did all of this good stuff when I was playing, but they are kind of tearing guys down, not just me, but just in general. They tear all of these guys down or whatever, right? And then it's like, okay, you got some guys that don't really have good college careers. It's like, okay, but then they go to the combines and they kill it. It's like, well, damn, they don't have they didn't do that on the field. Right. So the whole combination for me was just like, it was just real goofy, like, leading up to the draft, because it's like, okay, you say you don't listen to it because you don't want it to affect you any type of way. But it's hard.
You have to kind of,
yeah. So it's hard. And then at the end of the day, it's like you don't control it. And that's what I try to do. If I'm talking to a parent or whomever now, I'm like, no, really at the end of the day, I know it's hard. I'm saying this because I've already been through it, but you don't control. It's not your pick. It's their pick. And they're gonna do what they want to with it. You know, regardless of whatever they may have told you. Sometimes those backstories may be true, but I promise you a lot of times, you know, it's so off the wall. I mean, we just look at sometimes some of the players, these teams, a lot of times I think they don't even have a clue for real. Like they do all this, they pay all this money to all of these scouting services, and you know, they got the analytics people and all of this type of stuff. And it's like, man, you can't grab both of you. Who
was the guy that would say Mike Mamula, who combined himself up to the top?
Yeah, you know, and Mike is my guy. Cause that was my year. He was the first round pick, and I was the second round pick. But yeah, like Mike was really the first guy that hired like a sports, like science guy that worked on the sport, like specifically, and he just attacked like all of the drills that they do at the combines, and he went to the combines and like, you know,
hey, I ain't mad at it. I ain't mad at it.
Hey, no doubt, me either.
But yeah, like I said, I always thought that was weird. Like you said, even still today, like it's just always weird. Like you'll hear around draft time, like these weird stories come out, like, you know, somebody hit somebody or somebody smoking weed, or like okay, like why is this coming out now? Like what gets me is the Laramie tonsil thing.
Oh, that was
like, I was like, bro, like where in the hell did this come from? Like, you know what I mean?
And I think that was somebody in his family.
His family,
like,
one of them.
It's like, man, like,
always the one closer to you.
I know that they say you gotta, like, you know, forgive, but man, that person could never be a part of my life again.
5 minutes before the draft.
Yeah, that was like, I mean, he was gonna be a first round pick, like early first round pick, and for like damn, like whatever happened, like I did you that dirty for you to do that, like really?
Right.
Yeah,
that's just
man.
That's evil. That's evil on steroids, like for real.
Literally, man. You know what I mean? I can see maybe a baby mama or something like that, but damn, family. You know what I mean? Like, damn, you're supposed to love support each other.
It's like, if it's a baby mama, it's like, okay, so why would you affect the money that he gonna make? Because
you
probably gonna try to get some anyway.
Take care of you,
Wouldn't you want him to make more money?
If she's a dumb one, yes, you know, dumb ones they can't control themselves.
They can't control themselves.
Yeah, but anyway, man, moving on. So, like you said, you ultimately get drafted. The second round by Philadelphia. So, what was leading up to that? Like, did you work out for them specifically, or did you have any type of prior relationship to them, or did you build any type of connection, or know anything that you were going to be drafted?
So Philly was one of the teams that I went and interviewed for prior to the draft, and you know, sat down with everybody. You know, I got a good feeling, but at the same time, I mean, while I was there, it was probably 10 other guys there. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, like, hey, you know, and I pretty much knew most of them anyway. It's like, what's up, my man? You know what I mean? So even though I went there, I really didn't know, just because, I mean, there are guys that I've talked to that they've said, man, listen, I had no clue so-and-so was going to draft me. I never talked to him pre-draft. I didn't go interview with them. Like, they didn't ask to see me when I was at the combines, and they ended up drafting me. So the science of all of that is just it's unknown for real.
Yeah. All right. So you get drafted by Philadelphia. So tell us about, I guess, your rookie season going in. Like, what was that like? Who was the coach at the time? Was it Andy? Was it? What was somebody else? Or was it?
No, it wasn't Andy. So it was Ray Rhodes. So it was Ray Rhodes. He was our head coach.
Yeah.
Man, we had Randall Cunningham was the quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
His backup was Rodney Peete.
Yeah.
Rodney Pete's backup was Ty Detmer. You know, he won the Heisman.
Yep.
He won the Heisman the year we thought Rocket was going to win the Heisman. Like when Rocket had that crazy year in college.
Robbery. Absolute robbery.
And Ty, that's my man. He's from
I still remember the Orange Bowl.
He ain't go starting stuff.
They called a holding.
It's like, so we had like
it took me back.
We had Ricky Waters, who was our running back.
Damn.
And who do we have on? So the year I went to Philly, they did not re-sign Eric Allen, and so Eric was like a legend in Philly, cornerback perspective. So sliding in there, he wore 21. I had 21, so it was just a bunch of talk about that as well. Like, you think you're gonna be able to, uphold.
Oh gosh,
feel these shoes,
Like, man, I'm like, yo, I'm just trying to get in here. You know what I mean? Like, let me get my feet wet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, give me. But it was pressure from that standpoint. Being drafted and then expecting to play some. I don't think right off they expected for me to start, but that was my goal. So I didn't starting the season, but I played nickel, so I played a lot. Played on a lot of the special teams. And again, we had one of our cornerbacks, Derek Frazier. Somehow he got hurt. We playing in New Orleans. We like on the field warming up, and I'm like, okay, I know that I'm just gonna play my normal nickel, do my special teams. And the coach was my defensive coordinator, Emmett Thomas, was like, "Yo, Bobby, you gonna start at corner." And I was just like, it wasn't like so. I was surprised, like, okay, what happened to D Fraze? I mean, he was just running around with us, but it went from like that for like 5 seconds to like, okay, it's on. I'm never gonna come out the field. Like that's my man, but like, man, he not gonna get this spot back. And so like that was my mentality. I played well. We won the game on the road, and man, I basically started the rest of my career, and that was like 6 games, and I was ready. Again, I was ready. I took advantage of the opportunity. I knew the system, so it wasn't a shock from that standpoint. And I just went in there and balled. That was it.
So it's history repeating itself, just like Notre Dame. Stay ready, get ready. Couple games in, the rest is history.
Yeah. So ironic.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I was looking. I was looking at your background. I was just like, yeah, this dude started from his rookie year all the way to pretty much almost when he retired. Yeah, I just thought that was incredible. I always was wondering, like, because in the old days of like that NFL is probably hard to get on the field as a rookie, whether you're a high draft pick or not. So I was always, kind of wondering the story, like, how did he get on the field and like start like as a rookie, like back then. But it's nice to know that now, like, the kind of little backstory to what happened. So I guess what was it a big culture shock going from, like, so you being from Texas, coming up here up north, coming up here to Philly, and Philly kind of gets a bad rep, it's very in your face. It's kind of like New York, you know what I mean? And people are a lot more thorough. They're like, look, you suck, bro. Like, you suck.
Not that you suck.
Was that a big culture shock for you, or?
Oh, absolutely. Like just that whole, it's like, I call it the like syndrome era, where it's like extra blunt. I mean, they not beating around the bush. I mean, they just raw. And so to like experience that, of course it was a culture shock. and it definitely made you have thick skin because like you would listen to like some of the talk radio and like, man, these people would be like murdering dudes, and I'm like, what?
Right.
Yeah,
Like, I
it's a
mean,
little different.
It was almost like we weren't pros. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, listen,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But the good thing about it though, my first 2 years, we made it to the playoffs.
Mhm.
You know, we were battling against the Cowboys during that time, and they were winning. They had all those Hall of Famers, and you know, we going up against the Troy Aikmans, the Emmitt Smiths, the Michael Irvins, the Alvin Harpers, the Jay Novacek, the great offensive linemen, and not even to mention the defensive guys. They brought Dion in, you know what I mean? So like, it was thick, you know what I mean? But to still have that level of competition, but be competitive and still make it to the playoffs, you know, I felt like, you know, it was a good start. And I think Ray Rhodes, our head coach, I think he had like a 3 or maybe 4 year run. And they brought Andy in. And, you know, when Andy came in, we started back up, you know, in a good trajectory as far as like really establishing ourselves, like not only in the NFC East, but just in the league as a whole. Because, I mean, one thing that I say about Andy, man, he hires great assistant coaches. He's not one of those coaches that just hire do boys. That just go, you know, yes, man. But like if you look at, so if you go back in history, they talk about the Bill Walsh tree. They talk about coaching tree. They talk about the Bill Belichick tree. But Andy Reid has his own tree. So just check this out. On his coaching staff, Leslie Frazier, who was a former player, he was a DB coach. No, he's been a head coach in Minnesota. He's actually now the defensive coordinator at Buffalo. Steve Spagnuolo, he was our safeties coach.
I didn't know that.
When the Giants won the Super Bowls, their last Super Bowls, he was the defensive coordinator there. Steve has been a head coach. He's obviously now in Kansas City. Ron Rivera, he was our linebackers coach.
Wow.
Stacked.
Yeah. Man, I don't stop there. John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh. Yeah, who was in Baltimore. He was our special teams coach.
Special teams, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it's like, man, we had like hits. When you think about like the success we had, like, of course, we had dogs. But we had like great coaches. We had a great head coach, and we had great assistant coaches. And that's something where when you look back on Andy's career, that's something that's going to have to be talked about as far as, I mean, I forgot Pat Shermer. He was
Pat Shermer's
coach. Pat has been a head coach before. He's the offensive coordinator now. You know what I'm saying? So like, man, we had just like a lot of great coaches, like not only just talent on the field, but we had talent as far as like, you know, in the coaching room as well. And man, it just showed with, you know, their experiences. We had some of the coaches that were, you know, because Ron Rivera, he played in the matter of fact, him and Leslie Frazier played on the 85 Bears when they won the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? So we just had like a great mix, you know, guys that were just been coaches all their lives, guys that have been players on a professional level that have became coaches. And, you know, Andy, he came from up under Mike Holmgren's coaching tree out there in Green Bay. He was the quarterback's coach when he was there before the Eagles hired him. So, I mean, it's just talent like all over the board.
Like I'm happy that because I did not know all of those guys were under Andrew. Like I know probably when you said Leslie Frazier and like Steve Spagnuolo, but I didn't know like Harbaugh and like Pat Shermer. Like those are some dudes, you know what I mean? Maybe to the passive NFL fan, you know, they might not know, but these guys are, are go-getters. These are mainstream, at some point were head coaches and now offensive coordinators. You're not quarterback coaches.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. So as far as I guess, let's talk about these early 2000s and early 90s Eagles teams, man. So it's like a few years. It was like, man, you guys were really rocking. You guys were loaded. You guys had McNabb. You guys had Brian Westbrook at running back. The receiving core was pretty solid, and the offensive line. Then obviously you guys had dogs on defense yourself, and the opposite of you had Troy Vincent and Brian Dawkins and all of these linebackers. Like, what were those years like, man? I guess a few of those years.
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting just because we were a defensive-led team. I think any of the guys would admit that, even if they were on. You talk to Donovan, we were a defensive-led team where, I mean, we just fought, man. It was, the same mentality that you talk about, like that East Coast, the Philly, rough and rugged. We challenged each other. We had Jim Johnson, who was our defensive coordinator.
He was famous for those blitzes, bro. They kept talking about.
He was like the mad scientist as far as drawing up all of the different blitzes.
Yeah.
I mean, we had Al Harris, who was our third corner. We had Jeremiah Trotter, who was our
linebacker. Yeah.
So we had like Hugh Douglas on the D line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like we had like some really, really like hungry, like talented, like smart, like guys. And the thing about it is like, we didn't just work together. Like we like did stuff outside of the building, as far as whether it was holidays, just doing stuff, whether we going to dinner, so we had a really like tight-knit crew. And, when somebody was down, we tried to pull them up. I know pretty much all of their families, if they had kids during the time. I didn't have kids at that particular time, but, it was just like a fun time to like play. Unfortunately, we wasn't able to like get over the hump. I think like we needed like a little bit more help offensively. If we just probably could have just gave Donovan like one more weapon, like we would have won, I feel, multiple championships, just because defensively, like we led the league in yards, we led the league in passing defense, and most importantly, scoring defense. And that happened like multiple years. It was like a multiple year period. So just to be a part of something like that, it was cool. And then also, I mean, you mentioned it, playing with a Hall of Famer like Brian Dawkins.
Yeah.
That gave you just so much. That gave you so much security as a corner, because that's one thing about Jim. Like, we got off the bus sending multiple guys. Like we weren't passive at all. Like we were going to get you. Like we wasn't sitting back. We didn't care. And so to have somebody like that security blanket playing back in the deep middle, I mean, it definitely gave you comfort being out there. I call it the Autobahn, being out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had a quick question. What was it like playing for Emmett Thomas, a Hall of Fame DB himself?
You know what? So when they fired Ray, right, which that fired Emmett, like when Andy came in and Jim Johnson and all those guys, like the first mini camp, like I was a hole because I think I was because I wasn't used to the turnover, because being in high school I had the same coach, being in college I had the same coach. You know what I mean? We may have like lost a position coach, but our head coach was like in place. And so the guys that drafted me basically like getting fired, and I'm a part of why they got fired, because we weren't producing on the field.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I was upset. I can remember like Jim asking me to do some stuff, and I would like be like, man, like whatever.
Right.
it got so bad to where me and him, like after one of our mini camps during the summer, just went, sat down, had a beer, and just talked. And I expressed to him my feelings. He talked to me about his defense and how he planned on using everybody. And, we worked it out as grown men. But, before that, I wasn't prepared for that transition. Not at all.
Right. Man. Yeah, like I said, but the thing is, at least you got that kind of out of the way. I think a lot of people kind of let it, sit on them, or they go to separate ways. But like you said, you guys, I guess came to some type of resolution, and I guess you kind of bought in, and trusted it after that.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's your career.
Oh yeah,
it's not your agent's. Like your agent worked for you. You know what I'm saying? Your agent not going to be in between the lines. Your agent not going to be in the meeting room, like none of that. So I just took that approach, and I was just it was pleasing that Jim understood, and like I said, like once he just painted because like I said, I wasn't even trying to digest what the system was going to be about, just because I'm like, man, y'all just fired my man. Like you fired Ray, you fired Emmett. You know what I mean? It's like, and they both of them from Texas as well. So like we had like
that bond,
we had like a special bond. But it was for the better. We needed the disruption. That was probably easily one of their greatest hires at head coach. At Philly, bringing in Andy, and I gave the rundown on all of the coaches that he brought in, their resumes, and I mean, what more could you ask for?
Literally, man. I was gonna ask, just something for the people that know, man. What was your height and weight as a corner? Like you were a big corner, bro. Like I understand, like you said, why you wanted to play, but yeah, like you were a huge corner at the time. Do you see a lot of them? Well, not a ton of them, but in today's age, but I mean, like, what was your size, like your height and weight, like when you were playing corner?
Yeah, so when I'm like 6'3.5". So my weight was like probably around 215, like playing weight during that time.
Like I guess that size, with you being that big as a corner and obviously having the athletic ability, technique, and skill, were there any who were some of the guys that maybe gave you challenges? Like as far as receivers, were there any like at all that like man, this guy's like tough? You know what I mean? I know I'm in for a long day.
I can remember one year in Dallas they had Joey Galloway.
Oh yeah,
they had my Notre Dame. They had Rocket Ismail.
Oh
so
yeah,
like smaller, quick guys were tougher. But as you know, during that time, it was the Michael Irvins, it was the Chris Carters. Herman Moores, like guys, that were playing, especially like in the NFC during that time. So those bigger guys, I mean, if we probably were in a foot race, I probably could beat them running. So I could really be even more physical with them because in my mind, I really didn't have a fear that this guy's finna like run past me.
Right? So there was no fear there.
Yeah, so I would just try to bang them like as much as possible, and I really wanted those type of matchups as opposed to like those short, quick little jitterbug guys. You know what I mean? So that really played into my strength because at the time the league was trending on big receiver. Even Jerry Rice was 6'1" or probably 6'2".
Yeah, he was definitely a big dude. Yeah.
What I mean, and so in going against somebody like that, I love those challenges all day. It's just those little 4-2 guys, 4-3 guys. You like they down, getting in and out of their breaks, like all of that type of stuff.
Yeah, man, I feel you. So as far as I guess like on the Eagles or just on the teams, like who are some of the funniest guys on the team? Like, I guess with the Eagles, like, was anybody complete?
Hands down, Hugh Douglas.
I can see that. I can see that.
On our team, on defense, it was Hugh.
Okay.
And then Then on offense, it was done. Like Donovan is like a funny.
I can see that too.
Yeah, that's absolutely I can see that. Yeah, like no hesitation.
Hugh, man, like it would be, but like we needed that, right? So it would be times where it's during the game, and like say it's the third quarter or coming toward the end of the game, Hugh hadn't got a sack. Yeah, man, this dude would look back at us in the secondary and be like, "Hey man, can I get some coverage?" I'd be like, like we covering these guys for 4, 5, 6 seconds. Like, can you get your big butt to the quarterback? You know what I'm saying? In 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Like, why do we have to cover these guys all of this time? So we would be having like those type of conversations, like all the time, like during the game. And when it's like serious, fourth quarter, we got to stop this team. They got the ball. They may have some momentum. We got to get off the field. We got to like force a turnover or get a sack, to get them out of field goal range. So, yeah, man, he was a man. He was a funny guy, man. He was a funny guy.
Imagine. Was he probably like the biggest trash talker? Like, who were some of the biggest trash talkers on the team?
Oh yeah. That stayed with him too.
Stayed with him too, yeah.
So he wasn't really like a big. So we would talk trash against the offense like at practice because one good thing that Andy did, even during the season, there were like maybe a couple of plays in practice where it would be like the first offense, first defense. We working on blitz period, or we working on third down package. And we would, bang against these guys and, talk junk and, being a defensively led team, we got the best of those guys for the most part.
Let them know,
Yes, sir. It was just, man, he just kept it. He kept it light, because it's especially because like we playing in Veterans Stadium, they fighting up in the 700 level. Like they literally had a courthouse. They had the courthouse in the stadium because like it would be so much foolishness like going on. It would be times where we should probably be watching the field and we looking up in the 700 like, oh, this dude just failed. It was crazy, man. The vet was crazy. But yeah, Hugh, man, he kept it light and we needed that for sure. We needed that.
Oh yeah, that's cool, man. I guess stay into some current stuff before you get out of here, man. I guess what is your opinion on obviously you probably walk, current NFL and stuff like that. What is your opinion on the Eagles now, their situation? Like a few years ago, not too far from winning the Super Bowl, they let Doug Peterson go. And now it seems like they're, got the new head coach. They got Jalen Hurts at quarterback. They got Fletcher Cox is, I guess, the star player on the defensive line, and they got Darius Slay in the secondary. What do you think? What do you think of the Eagles this season? What are they trying to do?
Man, I need to ask you that question. But you know what? I think there's been some progress, right? Obviously, starting early in the season, you look at games like the Dallas game where Monday Night Football, they didn't run the ball. They wasn't using Miles Sanders. You think about like, what's the plan? It was just an embarrassment. And then, you hear different stuff where does the head coach feel like Jalen fits his system? Yeah. And all of this type of stuff. And I'm like, shit, is the head coach the right person? If I'm a player,
I thought it was a questionable hire to me. That was,
like, it's not like he's had a resume where he was a head coach somewhere else, right? Yeah. So that whole narrative just kind of blew me away, especially with, how it is for a lot of these black quarterbacks, man. Like just the flat, it's hard. It's hard being a quarterback, period. But it's definitely hard being a black quarterback, like even still to this day. And so I just felt like some of those early narratives, man, were just like BS or what have you. And then you think about defensively, it's like what type of system are they running? A couple of weeks ago, I saw where Fletcher Cox, which I didn't like this personally as a player, but he was like, I'm not being used the right way. Like that's a situation where we can't let the family business get out in the street.
Right. You should have kept it in the locker room.
Like make that call to Jonathan and say, hey, well, let's talk. Sit down. Like the way technology is, you can have some cut-ups of different plays and be like, look, when you use me like this is the result that can happen. But when you use me like this, I don't think so. Like that's how I would have liked Fletcher to handle that. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But you know, they had a good showing this past week against Denver. I felt like Denver's win versus the Cowboys was the most impressive win by any team the entire NFL season, I feel, because when you think about Denver, they had just traded away one of their best players in franchise history, Von Miller. They're going on the road playing against a Dallas team. Granted, they were getting Dak back because he had sat out the one game with his calf, but they're getting him back. It's an offensive team that's, you know, they've been clicking on all cylinders.
Yes,
Dak is really, truly, probably somewhere. If you have a top 5 in the MVP list, he would have to be, honestly, even though I'm not a Cowboys fan, he would have to be on there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
MVP.
So for Denver to go down to Dallas and dismantle them.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they had some trash yards and points at the end of the game, but
it was a blowout.
Yeah, they dismantled the Cowboys, and so to go for us to go to Denver and play and win the way that they win, that was a great victory for those guys. So, I mean, I'm a fan. You know, when I speak about the Eagles, it's not it's we. I feel like I'm a part of the organization still. That's why I played 9 of my 10 years. But I just feel like as tough as our fans are, as tough as the media is up there, I mean, you know, those guys going to need some time. The coach going to need some time to learn how to, like, call a game, to learn how to end the game. You may have to tear up this game plan and do something totally different. Right. You can't be to win on this level. You cannot be hard-headed and think that it's my system, and if it's not being successful, it's because the players can't do it. I'm not going to adjust. You got to adjust, man. Like, because these people getting paid too. Like,
exactly.
You know, of course, we all got our own team, but these people getting paid too. You know what I'm saying? They watch him. You know, they got savvy vets. They pick up on tendencies and things like that. So, you know, I just think it's going to take some time. I'm a Jalen Hurts fan. You know, he's another Texas guy from Texas.
Yeah.
He's a coach's kid. His dad coaches high school football here in the state of Texas. I mean, you saw he's played in big games in college. Granted, this is the NFL, but he's played in big games in college. And I just think that, you know, if they can give him some time, shit, he'll be all right. You know, they got to change up some stuff when it comes to how they call the games. They've been doing a better job as far as running the ball. So, you know, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough, man. I just, you know, being here in Texas country, which is cowboy country. I just want to have a good Thanksgiving, man. I want my. I'm a December baby, so I want to have a good December, man.
Yeah.
Like my friends, my fan. Like, listen, man. When I was playing. Even though I played for the Eagles, most of my family stayed Cowboys fans. They didn't
yeah, they're like, okay.
That's how strong Cowboys I know that, like, that's how strong Cowboys following is. Like, I know guys, my peers. I'm not gonna name them. They played in the NFL. Imagine playing in the NFL, and you are not a fan of the team you played for, but you being from Texas. You are like guys that played in the NFL that have never played for the Cowboys, and they're Cowboy fans.
Bro, but why though? Like, is there a reason?
Man, that's what I want to know why. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
Jesus.
That's how strong. That's how strong that Cowboys following is. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean the Cowboys, like the whole little. I guess I get it, the star on the helmet, and being proud, and it's the local team and stuff like that. But God damn, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I guess I don't know. I can never relate to that. You know what I mean? Me being actually from Maryland and never actually liking the Washington football team or whatever the team is we were supposed to root for. Like I said, I've historically been always a Bucks fan. You know what I mean? As far as me getting older and understanding football, that's kind of what it was. But as far as guess who are some of the better teams in NFL this year that you really think can make a push? Like, in my honest opinion, I thought with the Rams bringing Von Miller, it was case closed, and then they added icing on the cake with Odell Beckham. But I mean, they kind of look. Well, I guess it's the first game, but it's looking kind of suspect. But I guess who are some teams out there in the NFL that you really looking forward to seeing make it there at the end?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm looking forward to.
The Cowboys already know.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I'm looking forward to now. Just being a realist. I think even though Tampa just got dismantled by Washington. So it's just been kind of goofy when it comes to but that's good for the game. I think in general.
I think so too. Yeah,
and it just lets you know, okay, if we're not focused, even a team that you think is like mediocre or under mediocre, they can beat a good team that's looked upon as possibly to be a Super Bowl contender. And so I still think Tampa is gonna be there. I think Green Bay,
man,
with what they have, I think that they're gonna be there from a NFC standpoint. You mentioned the Rams. Like, I think really losing Woods, unfortunately.
Robert Woods,
I think that really I think that set them back more so than what people really thought. And I think that's just a perfect example of you needing specific parts and specific players to play specific roles. Because even though Cooper Kupp is he's leading the league in receiving, I think touchdown.
Yeah, he's killing it. Yeah, he's everything.
I think a lot of his success comes off of the back of Woods.
Robert Woods, yeah.
And so not having him, I just knew that even though they were able to pick up Odell, plugging him in there, it wasn't going to be the same because there's a learning curve. You're going to have to learn. I mean, he's a pro. He should be able to pick it up at some point. But just some of the things that Woods did and the way that they used him, I think that hurt a lot. And we saw that in the game on Monday. And so as far as AFC teams, man,
it's crazy on that side because it's like you got the Chiefs. The Chiefs was looking like he was ready to bury him in the dirt.
They're coming back now.
That's what I'm saying. The Chiefs is fucking coming back, and then you got the Buffalo Bills. It's like, okay, are you ready to play or not? You know what I mean? Each and every Sunday. And
Tennessee keeps winning. Tennessee just wins.
And then Jay, your Raiders. Your Raiders brought Jay.
I think if I was forced to pick a team, I like Tennessee, man. I like Tennessee. I like
But even with Tannehill, you trust Ryan Tannehill, bro?
I like Mike Vrabel, man, as a coach.
Yeah.
I respect Mike. I just don't trust Tannehill, man.
Yeah, I don't trust Tannehill. I don't think he can do it.
Not obviously not having Derrick Henry, that hurts, right?
Yeah.
Because if he didn't get hurt and he was still in the fold,
right?
I just feel like the way that their offense is played, Tannehill is only asked to do what his strengths are. They're not asking him to do anything outside of his skill set. And then the defense has been playing tough. A lot of those guys on the D line, they've been opportunistic, getting turnovers, things like I like Buffalo, even though I like Buffalo more so because I'm a Leslie Frazier fan. He's obviously
Leslie,
defensive coordinator, but man, I just think that the uncertainty of the league right now just makes it that much more exciting when we get ready to get to the end of this thing.
Yes, sir.
It's just gonna make it to where all eyes are gonna be on the playoffs, the new format that's coming up.
Oh yeah,
the way they're doing that is only one team to get the bye. So I'm looking forward to it to see what happens. But
last game of the season is Cowboys at Eagles to end the season.
Oh.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully, we could do some spoil. That could be some spoiler or something. We can spoil.
Hey, Bob, you on another note before we get you out of here, I gotta ask you, man. I don't know if you follow it or not, but we kind of follow the little celebrity like box and stuff, like the Jake Paul stuff, right? So I guess one of your you played against them. Frank Gore is fighting, was it Darren Williams and NBA? I don't know if you caught whiff of that. Like, what is your opinion? What is your opinion on these guys like stepping into the ring? Like we saw what happened to Nate Robinson, right? My man got laid flat on his face, and I thought that shit was the funniest shit on earth.
Nate Robinson, Ocho Cinco,
Chad. Chad. But Chad did all right though. Chad did all right. Yeah, he fought a real dude. You know what I mean? And he held his own a little bit. You know,
I'm looking forward to it. Really, it's like, I just hope these guys don't get hurt to where it's like messes with their quality of life. It seems like both of them are taking it very seriously, and it's not because they need something. Both of them have had long careers where they've made a lot of bread, and so I'm all for it. Like shit, I want them to rumble, like for real.
Yeah, me too.
Rumble, young man, rumble.
I want all of the bullshit. Like I want to see it. Like I'm looking forward to it. It was one of me and some of my guys that go back and forth on a text chain. Yeah, was like, yo, y'all want to shoot the Tampa and go see that?
Hey, I was just telling Amon last night. I was like, yo, I'm going to this. I gotta see it because, like I said, I love both of them. Like I love Frank. You know what I mean? I love his running style, his grittiness. One of the hardest running backs in the NFL. And then obviously Darren Williams was a monster. He was always up there. It was like him and Chris Paul. And it's like seeing these dudes actually like fight, you know what I mean? Seeing them in a different light is like, that's cool to me. You know what I mean? Because boxing to me is kind of went away. It's like, we want to see Spence versus Crawford. We don't want to see Spence versus Sean Porter. I don't want to see that. We know you're going to win, bud. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to see that.
That's just I think like for real, what it may do in a good way is bring more credibility back to boxing. It may force these guys, just like in the UFC, where like, listen, man.
Yeah, UFC different.
Like they set the bar. Y'all gonna fight every night. All this ducking, like, man, that's like, I don't like. Come on, man. Like that's a joke. It takes all these years for y'all to fight. You know what I mean? Like, how can we respect that? Like, it's boxing, it's tough, but y'all like nitpicking like these specific fights.
It's handpicked opponents. Like, and the thing is, you can see it. Like I said, the one thing I don't watch a lot of UFC. Like Jay's a UFC guy. Like he trains and watches and talks about it. But like one thing I can consistently say about UFC: the best fight the best. You're gonna get a great weekend. You're gonna get a great fight card. And somebody gonna get knocked the hell out. You know what I mean? It's as simple as that. Yeah, man. But like I said, I don't want to hold you too much longer, man. But like I said, Bobby, thanks for tuning in, man. Anybody you want to shout out before hopping off, bro?
Man, nah, man. Y'all just keep doing what you're doing, man. You know what I mean? Like, man, anytime I can see, some guys that look like myself, trying to jump in this media game. It's the wild west, So when you hit me up, if I had time, I did, because I did a couple of others this season as well, and it's been cool. It's been we didn't always agree, which is good. That's good conversation. And you guys are just pushing the game forward because that's how guys are able to make what we make. And with all of the eyeballs being on it, with all the different media podiums talking about the NFL and stuff like that. And so, good luck to you guys going forward.
Thanks a lot, man.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, man. So Bobby Taylor, everybody. Like I said, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next show. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Bobby, like I said, thanks again for hopping on. And everybody, we'll see you next show. Peace.